Yeah, I'm with you, Darren. That's the first time I've ever heard anybody say that too. It's on that says, brewing coffee ready for judgment. That's a funny thing to say. Good morning, everybody. Hey, Rachel, glad you could join us today. David says, boy, after what I went through this morning in men's Bible study, I love this title. Love it. That's interesting. Sounds like there's a story there. Yeah, so we are continuing in Matthew 24, and we're going to get to some good stuff today. One thing as a preliminary, we will do our next partners meeting on Saturday. I will probably get those Zoom links out to you all today. So be looking for that. And if you don't have it by tomorrow morning, then holler at me and I will make sure you get it. If you would like to join us, it is not too late. Go to the show notes and there's a link to crosstocrown.org and sign up to support us, be a monthly partner, and you can join us for a regular time on Zoom. It's always a great time. So we'd love to have you join us. And for those of you who are already partners, be looking for that. Seems like there was, David says, trying to keep folks in context in Ezekiel 38. Yeah, that's hard, isn't it? All right. One other sort of preliminary thing here. I saw in the comments after yesterday's video, I think it was, someone suggesting that the abomination of desolation might have something to do with a wicked sacrifice in the temple. I think that's what he said. I know someone brought that up a week or two ago as well. So yeah, I hear that, and I think again I read it quickly. I see all your comments, by the way, or at least most of them that come in the videos. I don't always respond, obviously, to them, but I do read over them, and some of them make me laugh, and some of them are typical of just the people who have their opinions and don't bother me with any possibility that I'm wrong and that kind of thing. And then some of them are very encouraging. Kathy is always so encouraging. I love to hear your kind words and many of the rest of you as well. Anyway, all that to say, I saw this in passing, so I may be conflating several, but the question or comment, the thought is this abomination of desolation might have something to do with a wicked sacrifice, around 66 or so, and then leading into the siege. That may be. And it's just important for us to remember, these things are not all as, punctiliar as we might think. I use the term AD 70 all of the time, but the siege was actually longer than that. And in fact, you might say, putting it all together, it was 3.5 years, which is a lot like saying a time times a time and a half. I think someone mentioned that yesterday as well. So you've heard me use the word directionally true. We need to remember this is painting a picture that isn't quite as precise as sometimes we want it to be. So the point is, it could be that the abomination that really provoked God's wrath was that event in the temple. But as we look at the text itself, the abomination of desolation, it sure seems to me like that phrase is tying more to the desolation of the temple, which is toward the end of the siege. And take that with the statement we looked at the other day in Luke, his version of this. When you see the armies surrounded by many encampments, know that her desolation is near. So they're supposed to be looking for something. If it's looking for a wicked sacrifice, that might play into it, but it seems the very clear statement, as Luke records it, is when you see the armies, that's the time to go. So was something that went on in the temple part of it? Maybe. But what I think is clear is when you see the armies coming, run. Does that make sense? Everybody tracking with that? Good morning. Yeah, Sauna, very good. Yeah, AD 70 is kind of the catchphrase. That's the culmination, but these things took time. We're just in such a different age. we took out a dictator last month in, like an hour and a half. That is unique to this period in history. These things just didn't happen that fast. All right. So when they see this, they are to go. Right? Flee. Flee Judea, flee to the mountains. Don't come down from your house and get anything. Don't turn back from your field. Woe to those who are with child. Pray that your flight's not in winter or on the Sabbath. There will be then great tribulation, such as was not from the beginning of the world until now, no, nor may be. And if those days were not shortened, no flesh would have been saved, but because of the chosen, will those be shortened. I think we're going to come back and look at another aspect of this tomorrow. But today I want to move on. Then if anyone may say to you, behold, here is the Christ, or here, you may not believe. For there will arise false Christs or Messiahs, false prophets. They will give great signs and wonders so as to lead astray, if possible, also the chosen. Behold, I told you beforehand. Now, I mentioned last week and took you to a couple places in Acts where these leaders arose and drew people with them, such that the Roman officials, the Roman government, thought Paul was one of them, right? That he was leading this insurrection. And Josephus records several of these guys, and he doesn't call them false Christs, I don't think, but he talks about how they promise great miracles, and if people will just follow them. One guy said, I will prove that God's going to rescue us by, I will part the, I forget if it was the Jordan or the Red Sea, something that Moses did. And a lot of people followed him. Now, did he actually part the river? I doubt it, but I don't know. Maybe. The point is, we have verification of just what Jesus said here, that these leaders are going to come and lead a bunch of people away. And Jesus is warning his disciples, do not chase any of these imposters. Anyone who claims to be me, anyone who claims that they're going to lead you into safety, anybody who claims that they're going to deliver you from what's coming, don't follow them. You won't miss it. You will know when it's me, because you'll see the armies. That's the point. And look, he says, behold, I told you beforehand. You know, when we read the Bible as an abstract book of theological doctrines, then you read a statement like that, behold, I told you beforehand. And the you is meaningless. Right? He's not talking to anybody, at least not anybody for thousands of years. If this is intended for our future, then Jesus says to the disciples, hey, I told you beforehand. But he doesn't mean it. He means someday, in several millennia, there will be some people that experience this. But you who I'm talking to, even though I say, behold, I told you beforehand, and I told you to be on the watch, lest it come like a thief in the night, I don't really mean it. I mean, imagine what it would have been like for these disciples if Jesus puts them on high alert and then nothing happens, because Jesus was really making a more abstract statement to those who will either live through the whole church age, because we're all facing tribulation, as some would want us to believe, that this is descriptive of all of church history, or those who say, no, this is for a certain group of people, but it's not for thousands of years. If I were the original audience, I'd be like, hey, why are you talking to me as if this is going to happen to me, but it's not going to happen to me? It doesn't make any sense. We have to read the Bible on its own terms, as given, and realize Matthew is not part of a systematic theology. It is Matthew's articulation of what Jesus did and said, and he's writing to, or speaking rather, to these people, because this is going to happen in their lifetime. That's what he says in plain English, plain Greek. This will happen in this generation. So it says, I get told a lot that it's both pointing to the destruction of the temple, but also looking forward. And the question, the simple question to put back on them is, prove it. I mean, so that's the so-called dual fulfillment idea, that yes, there was a partial fulfillment in the first century, but then the ultimate fulfillment is later. Prove it. And why 2 fulfillments? Why not 7? Right? Let's just go ahead with the assumptions. Well, 7 is the perfect number, they tell us. Perfect is the complete number. So you're right. Not only do I think this was fulfilled in 70 AD, and it's going to be fulfilled another time at the end, I think it's going to be fulfilled 7 times. Prove me wrong. I mean, if I'm just going to assume that, then they can't disprove it. The dual fulfillment is pure assumption. There's no proof. Now there is, I want to be careful here, those of you who went through Isaiah with me, there are 2 fulfillments, and we are told, or they are, the Jews were told there were going to be 2 fulfillments. One was in 586, the other one, they didn't know it, but it's in what we know is 70 AD. Those are both in the prophets. But it's not assumed and vague and mysterious and like a secret knowledge. You read it and you see there's a double portion here. He says so, but not a triple portion. All right. So anyway, yeah, the already not yet assumption. Behold, I told you beforehand. He's talking to a group of people saying, look, I told you when this happens, be ready. If therefore they may say to you, behold, he's in the wilderness, you may not go forth. Behold, in the inner chambers, you may not believe. For as lightning comes forth from the east and appears to the west, so will also be the coming of the Son of Man. You will not miss it. So if somebody shows up and says, hey, follow me, I'm the deliverer. I will save you from what's coming upon Jerusalem. Don't listen to them, no matter what kind of signs they do or they promise. You can't miss it when I come. And it's not going to be in the form of a man appealing to you to follow me into the wilderness or something. No, you're going to see indisputable indication that it's time. You see that? You see the difference there? All right, so he says, so also will be the coming, the parousia of the Son of Man. Now, I just paraphrased and put words in his mouth and used the term I, like Jesus was saying, you'll know when I'm coming. But that's not what he says, is it? The parousia of the Son of Man will be so unmistakable as lightning flashing across the sky. Everybody sees it. It doesn't mean he's going to appear in the sky. That is not what this is saying. He's comparing it to lightning in the sky. If there's a thunderstorm nearby, you can't miss it. So what does he mean? Why does he use the language, so will be the coming of the Son of Man, the parousia, the arrival and the presence? It doesn't mean the bodily, visible return, but he's coming to do something through an agent, that is through the Roman armies. What does he mean? Well, he's going back to Daniel chapter 7. So remember Daniel 7. Daniel has this vision of the 4 beasts. The 4 beasts are 4 kingdoms. One kingdom is Babylon. Second is Persia. The third is Greece. The fourth is Rome, if you were with us through the Revelation series, we went through all of this. Rome is that fourth beast. So Daniel, this is Daniel 7:7 from the Septuagint. But after this, I was watching in a vision by night a terrifying fourth beast, and the fear of it was surpassing in strength. It had great iron teeth, devouring and pounding. It was trampling with its feet round about. It behaved differently from all the beasts before it, and it had 10 horns. And many designs were in its horns, and he goes on and describes it further. And I want to pick up verse 9. So in the time of that fourth beast, the Roman Empire, which we now know, that was the Roman Empire. Notice what Daniel says. I kept watching until thrones were set, and an ancient of days sat, having a cloak like snow, the tuft of hair on his head like pure wool. The throne was like a flame of fire shooting out. So Daniel sees this vision of heaven, and there are all these thrones set up, and there's one particular throne that has flames of fire shooting out. That's the Ancient of Days. And a stream of fire went out from before him, and thousands were waiting on him, and 10,000 times 10,000 were attending him. So he has this huge entourage. And books were opened, and a court were sat in judgment. Sana, it's Judgment Day. And I was watching the noise of the great words. That's a fascinating phrase. How do you watch noise? I was watching the noise of the great words, which the horn kept speaking, and the beast was beaten to death, and its body perished and was given over to burning with fire. The Roman army is not going to last forever. And the Roman Empire, and he who removed those around from their authority, a time was granted to a time for a season, and so on. Here's the key. I was watching in the night visions, and lo, as it were, a son of man was coming upon the clouds of heaven. Son of man coming upon the clouds of heaven, not coming to earth, but coming to the Ancient of Days in heaven. So the vision is there's this Ancient of Days on this majestic throne, surrounded by multitudes of servants. And this Son of Man comes riding on the clouds to the Son of Man in heaven. And royal authority was given to him, to the Son of Man. The Ancient of Days bestows upon the Son of Man kingly authority. And all the nations of the earth, according to posterity, and all honor was serving him, and his authority is an everlasting authority which shall never be removed, and his kingship which will never perish. So the Son of Man coming in the clouds is the Son of Man coming to receive his kingdom. That's Jesus. Jesus comes to the Ancient of Days and is given authority over all the nations. Now, we've looked at this in different series, Revelation, and the ones following that immediately, 1st, 2nd Thessalonians, and 1 Corinthians 15, and our, what I call it, Kingdom in the Last Days series, and so on. So I'm not going to go through all this now, but I'm persuaded that the fulfillment of this was in that 70 AD time period, and that two things happened. That Jesus received the kingdom, the heavenly temple was opened, and all those things that we saw in Revelation, and he brought his wrath against the Jews in Jerusalem for their generations of disobedience and wickedness and idolatry and so on, and for crucifying him. Those two things converge in various passages and prophecies in the scripture. In Matthew 24, the emphasis is upon the Son of Man receiving his kingdom, and the first kingdom he crushes as he rules the nations is Israel. He brings the Roman army to destroy the city, destroy the temple, and slaughter the wicked, vile, adulterous Israelites who had rebelled against the Lord from day one of his covenant with them. So when Jesus says here, you can't miss it. It's like lightning shining across the sky. When you see the Roman armies come, know the Son of Man is coming into his kingdom, and he is coming with the force of this Roman army to lay waste anyone within the city. So run, flee, go, even without packing a lunch, or you might find yourself dead. Everybody tracking with that? Scott says, my brother keeps telling me God is a God of evidence, so this is future. How does that follow? How does that follow? There are so many people that need to study informal fallacies. That doesn't follow at all. I told him the evidence was looking at Jerusalem today. There is no temple. I guess Jesus kept his word. Of course, their argument is they're going to build the temple. They're trying. If they could just get those Muslims off the Dome of the Rock, they know where the Ark of the Covenant is. They'd build the temple, and away we go. Yeah, nonsense. Very good. All right, so one more thing then. So the coming of the Son of Man will be obvious as lightning across the sky. And then this statement, for wherever the carcass may be, there the eagles will be gathered. This is parallel to a statement made in Deuteronomy 28. All right, quick pop quiz. What is Deuteronomy 28 about? What is the content? I know some of you know, and while I'm waiting, another passage just popped into my head that I might want to pull up and see if it makes sense. What is it? What is Deuteronomy 28 about? Waiting. David says, I think it's curses on covenant breaking. Scott says blessings and curses. Excellent. Very good. Very, very good. So I'm stalling now, trying to quickly find this. I should have pulled this up before. All right. Well, I'm not going to worry about it. I'll just allude to it maybe. Yep. Blessings and curses. Very good. So for anyone who's new around here, or just a review, God made a covenant with the nation of Israel. The stipulations of the covenant were what we call the law, and the heart of it was the 10 words or the 10 commandments. So I've told you again and again, the 10 commandments are not God's universal moral standard of righteousness. He didn't make this covenant with the Philistines or the Amorites or the Canaanites or the Americans or the Australians. He made it with Israel. The law is the core of the covenant God made with Israel. If you obey my covenant, if you obey the law, God said to Israel, I will bless you and you'll have such abundance. And Deuteronomy 28 lists all of these blessings, and they're fantastic. They are heaven on earth kind of thing. And just to kind of summarize here toward this section, this is Deuteronomy 28:11. And the Lord your God will make you abound with good things. I love that phrase. Yeah, I'll make you abound with good things in the progeny of your belly, in the progeny of your livestock, the progeny, the produce of your land, in the land that the Lord swore to your fathers to give you. So you're going to have healthy children, and much of them, and livestock and food. May the Lord open for you the good treasury, the sky, to give rain to your land, and bless all the works of your hands. And you will lend to many nations and will not borrow. And you will rule over many nations, but they will shall not rule you. You'll be the head, not the tail, and so on. All right? But, and so often, and this is where the dispensationalists, especially men like John MacArthur, just go off the rails. They talk about the promises of God, and the assumption when we talk about the promises of God are that his promises are always to our benefit. They are not. The promises to Israel were equally to their benefit and to their detriment, depending on whether or not they obeyed. Look what it says about the Israelites and their covenant if they disobey. It shall be, if you do not listen to the voice of the Lord your God to keep and do all his commandments, which I command you today, that all these curses shall come upon you and overtake you. Do you see? It's very simple. Obey, and abundance will overflow to you. But if you don't keep my law, cursed be you in the city, and cursed be you in the field. Cursed be your storehouses and your reserves. Cursed be the progeny of your belly, the produce of your land, the herds of your cows, the flocks of your sheep. Cursed be you when you come in. Cursed be you when you go out. May the Lord send you lack and hunger and exhaustion and everything to which you may put your hand. Whatever you may do, he will utterly destroy you, and he will, until he ruins you quickly. Sorry, I'm reading too fast. On account of your evil deeds, because you have forsaken me. Listen to this. May the Lord make death cling to you until it consumes you off the land that you are entering to inherit it. May the Lord strike you with difficulty and fever and cold and irritation and murder and with blight and paleness and cold coffee. And they shall just make you perish until they destroy you. Sorry, I shouldn't make this trite. This is intense stuff. And the sky over your head shall be bronze for you, and the earth under you iron. May the Lord render the rain for your land as powder. May the Lord give you slaughter before your enemies. You shall go out against them one by one and flee from them by 7 ways. You shall be in dispersion in all the kingdoms of the earth, and your corpses will be food for the birds of the sky and for the wild animals of the earth, and there will be no one to frighten them away. You see the similarities here? Over on the left there is Matthew. For wherever the carcass or corpse may be, there the eagles will be gathered together. And in Deuteronomy, may your corpses will be food for the birds of the sky. Very similar concepts. And I think it's in Deuteronomy 32. It's what I was trying to find there. When Moses says to them, you're about to enter the promised land. So they've just heard all of these covenant blessings and curses. And Moses is about to lead them into the promised land, or Joshua will. He says, you're going to go in here and you are going to disobey, and you are going to provoke the Lord to wrath to bring all these curses of the covenant upon you. And at some point in one of the translations, I forget if it's the Hebrew or the Greek, maybe it's both, it talks about the eagle coming and, basically killing you. And someone alluded to this the other day. I wouldn't build a whole viewpoint on this, but it is interesting to me that the mention of the eagle and the fact that the eagle was a part of the Roman symbolism. Coincidence? Maybe. Or maybe not. Anyway, the point is, Jesus is simply saying, your corpses are going to be spread across the ground and food for the birds as an expression of the fulfillment of the promises of God to slaughter them if they break the covenant. And they did. And they amplified their wickedness to such a degree that they murdered unjustly the Son of Man, the Messiah. Jesus told them it's coming. It's what's going to happen to them. So since this is coming, disciples in Jerusalem, that generation that he's speaking to, since this is coming, you won't be able to miss it. The signs will be obvious for anybody who's paying attention. When you see the armies, run for your lives, or else you will lie dead like those who don't run. It's just as straightforward and simple as can be, it seems to me. It's just there. Just coming in here about 5 minutes ago, what about today's Israel? Why is there such a nation there now and their Christ-denying religion allowed to operate after God destroyed them in 70 AD? Oh, you're on Facebook, Jonas? I forget. It's been a while. I'm glad to see that somebody on Facebook got on because I know I've had some issues over there. I don't see anything, I mentioned this yesterday, I don't see any significance whatsoever with the nation of Israel in terms of prophecy and God's plan. They are a nation. They're not God's nation. They're not God's chosen nation. They're just a nation like any other nation. They need to submit to Christ. I don't think we should associate the group that was formed in 1948 with the group that was destroyed in 70 AD. In my view, there's no association. Paul says very clearly, circumcision means nothing. The writer of Hebrews says the old covenant is over. God's relationship to Israel is done. Now, I believe, and I tried to persuade you all of in Romans 11, that there will always be offspring of Abraham who come to Christ. That is not the same thing as suggesting that the nation of Israel has any significance to God. I do not believe it does. So there's a short answer. Darren says the Roman eagle comes to mind also. Yeah. Did you say that before I said it? Probably you did. All right. Well, I'm going to leave it there. Tomorrow we will look at, I haven't decided yet, so I'm not going to teach it, but I hope this is making sense. And yeah. All right. We'll see you tomorrow. Grace and peace to you.